So it is 7:01. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting of the Lake Bluff Library Board to order. Are there any additions or corrections that any of the trustees would like to make to this evening's agenda?
Yes, please. I would like to make a final report, hopefully almost final report on the Stroh room with some numbers. We can do that under old business or under finance, whichever you prefer.
Okay, let's do. Well, I was going to say it's listed as the foundation report. Why don't we put that under old business?
All right. And
what's going under old business, Kathy?
Basically some final costs on the Stroh reading room.
Oh, okay.
Sort of the division of foundation and library commitment to that.
Okay.
And then I would simply follow up by saying any additional adjustments to the agenda can be made later in the meeting as necessary.
Mm-hmm. Give me 1 second. Jill's realizing I have to rename myself, so.
And I'm going to ask any of the trustees, anybody has a timer on your watch that would come helpful. Katie and I may be involved in discussions. Our members of the community have a 5-minute limit on speaking. So if someone is able
Yes,
to.
I do.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, well, with that, I think that we'll go ahead and segue into opportunity for members of the public to address the board. So yeah, like Kathy said, we
Whoops.
It's froze, Katie.
Oh, there we go. So any members of the public, if you could bear with us
have a
for
real good way
moment.
to do a, oh,
Okay.
yeah, sorry about that.
No,
I am, you know what? I'm currently using an internet hotspot to boost the internet signal in this office, but that may not be sufficient. Give me 1 second. I want to. Okay, I apologize if my Wi-Fi cuts out. I'll try to avoid that as much as possible. At any rate, what I was saying earlier, for members of the public, we don't have since it's over Zoom, we don't have a good way to, if there's more than one person, to establish an order, so bear with us. But I will turn the floor over to the, I think the first person I've got listed here is Allie.
thank you. I'm sorry, Allie. If anyone could put their names in the chat, first and last name for the record, that would be helpful too, so we can make sure we have all that.
What am I going into here? The chat icon?
Yeah.
We really
Yeah, the
need,
chat.
we need that for
icon.
the minutes. I don't know that she has to put it into the.
I think Jill was
You can just state your name. I think that's
Okay.
okay.
Thank
That
you.
would be fine.
Yeah.
All right. My name is Allie Tafoya. My full name is Alicia Tafoya. I go by Allie.
Can you spell your last name for the record, please, Allie?
T as in Tom, A is an apple, F is in Frank, O is in orange, Y is in yellow, A is an apple. ALYSHIA is my first name. Birth date 8/18/86. I am a citizen of Lake Bluff.
Thank you.
Thank you. On Columbus Day around 1 p.m., I came in for the first time with my daughter, my niece, and a disabled person that I care for and nanny for. We, you know, spoke to the librarians, very exciting. I have never been there before. We saw that there was games to rent. We had gone downstairs. They did a craft. They asked if they could go back upstairs. To look at video games. I said, of course. My niece and daughter came back down quickly. My niece, who was 10 years old, told me that there was a man that clicked on something when they walked up, and it was very, very bad. And I tried to ask her what it was. She did not want to explain it, asked me to go check it out myself. As I'm going up the stairs, the other librarian I had caught and explained the situation. I didn't know she was a person that worked there, and said that she would handle it. I go upstairs. She said she had saw what it was and asked that person to leave. I checked in with my girls. They said they have never seen anything like that before, which was, you know, not something that you want a 9 or 10-year-old to see. There were other children that were younger as well that I know that were there on their own. A couple of younger boys as well with their parent. This person was sitting at the first computer next to the stairs, very blatantly sitting at that computer with full intent for anyone to see what they were doing. And as I said, that my niece said he had specifically clicked it when they had came up the stairs. And then the librarian was able to see that herself. After she had to deal with other issues, we sat down to talk. She couldn't tell me what was on the video, explain it to me personally, which at this point I'm in shock. You know, I don't know how to handle this issue myself. I've never heard of anything like this happening before in a, you know, a library, safe community place. And assume that, you know, firewalls or whatever else is, you know, expected, or sign-ins and whatnot to track kind of what you're watching on the internet. And I still don't know what my girls saw. I have no idea. I asked, you know, blatantly if it was porn. Yes. I asked blatantly what kind, the regular kind, girl on guy. I'm asking specifics because she got to see what, you know, was there. I didn't. So I don't know what or how to explain what she saw to the girls. Since then, I received an email the next day, which I thought was very insensitive, given the circumstances. I was in shock at the time. I had to step away at a moment. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. They pulled books for me on how to have hard conversations with children, which I had appreciated, but, you know, given, you know, taken out of the situation and reflecting and being able to kind of come to my senses of what actually happened in this whole scenario, being told that this is being handled being taken very seriously, and then getting an email isn't very serious to me. Saying that someone is suspended for a week isn't very serious to me. Saying that we're going to hold a committee meeting to discuss how long this person should be, you know, suspended for isn't a good answer for me. A good answer for me is this person is not going to be allowed in the building. And I know that you probably have your own protocols on things like that, but literally even just stating the words 1 to 2 years or whatever else isn't a good answer for me. There was nothing told that, you know, could be done going forward to prevent something like this from happening.
Ellie, sorry, you've only got about 15 seconds left.
So this has not been handled properly. I'm very upset, and it's not safe. And there should be things that should be taken in place that weren't handled right and should be done better.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Your time's up.
Okay, Mr. Tafoya, I'm Kathy Meierhoff. I'm president of the library board.
Thank
First of all, I want to profoundly apologize for what happened at our library. I totally understand your concern, your frustration, your outrage. I'm sure a little broken heart that all this happened, and I'm really sorry about that. I can assure you that we will continue to work on this matter. We're going to have discussion as the evening goes on. But first, I wanted to apologize to you, let you know that we're very, very sorry. If it's all right with you, we'd like to go ahead. We have a couple other people in the waiting room who may have something to say. We'd like to visit with them as well, and then we can have a discussion if that's all right with you.
That's fine with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ally.
Thank you.
We have, I've got two other, it looks like two other members of the public attending the meeting. I see the names Kate and Nancy. I don't know if either of you want to make a statement for the board. And I just admitted someone else to the meeting, just FYI. I'll go by what I'm seeing on the screen. I see the name Kate. Do you have want to address the board? Okay. So I received a chat message that says that Kate is not going to speak, does not want to make a statement. Nancy, is there a statement that you would like to make? Okay, Nancy says no. And then I just saw I apologize if I pronounce the name wrong, if it's Dea or D. Would you like an opportunity to address the board for this meeting?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay. And barring anyone else, I think it sounds like we're just going to have the one statement. So Ally, thank you for coming up or coming to the meeting to make your statement. I want to assure you that we are taking this very seriously. I apologize for the initial contact that we had when I sent the email. You were right that a phone call would have been more appropriate. So that was my mistake. So I hope, or I will keep that in mind moving forward for further communication. So I do apologize for that. Kathy, do you, should we continue with the agenda as is?
Well, if you don't mind, I'd like to just fill Ally in on a little bit of what's gone on in the last week.
That would be fine.
Ally, again, our apologies for this incident. Right after it happened, Katie reached out to me. I think by that time she'd spoken to you, and is it your sister or your sister-in-law?
My sister-in-law.
Oh, your sister-in-law, okay. And she was filling me in on what had happened, and she was actually interrupted by a visit from one of our officers in the Lake Bluff Police Department. So she visited with them, and after he left, she called me again. That same day, I was in a meeting with 3 other trustees. I advised them of what was happening. So that same day, 4 of the 7 trustees were appraised of the situation. Katie met with and we brainstormed a lot. We brainstormed a lot of procedures, what policy is regarding suspending someone from services. For your information, this individual has been suspended from library privileges for a year at this point. So that has been put in place. The police have visited with us, I believe, with your sister-in-law as well. The department heads met, things that are being considered.
So why would you allow someone that literally blatantly watches porn in front of children and adults that could be a threat to any person in society that you cannot trust, specifically watching something that they know that they're doing is wrong and then allow them back into your facility after a year. Why is that even a question? And why is that even
Ally, that, as
possible?
I said at this point, Ally, we're just beginning to consider the entire incident. So I assure you, there's going to be much continued conversation,
But
much.
that still isn't the right answer. The right answer is never. You never allow an individual like my beautiful, innocent girls have been affected for life because of this individual and the way that your establishment does not keep them safe in the regards of firewalls, in the regards of making sure that, you know, we know that people could just be watching porn at any time in this building. You know, I understand it's a public space, but you keep telling us it's a safe place and that you're taking the matter very seriously. There's no question in the world besides banned for life.
We'll take your thoughts under consideration. We've spoken at least twice this week to council. We're looking into the entire matter and we're going to continue to do so. We're going to move on with our meeting now, and we have a lot of business to take care of. You're welcome to join us. I'm sure the topic will come up again. I can assure you that I'll get ahead of myself here, that there's going to be a board committee set up with trustees, staff, actually members of the Friends of Lake Bluff Library, and community members. This does not happen in our library. It has not happened in our library.
That you know of.
That we know of. That's correct.
That you know of.
That we know of. We have orders in place. We have procedures, and we are doing our best. And we're, after this situation, we certainly will make sure that we are doing even better than before. I guarantee you of that. We cannot promise that nothing will ever happen, but we can assure you that we are going to do our very best that nothing ever happens like this again. It's a terrible situation for your family, and we appreciate it. As the library community agrees, this is a terrible situation, and we're all set back by it, and we're going to do better. So we're going to move on with the business of the evening. You're welcome to, and the other ladies in the chat room, you're welcome to stay with us through the evening. But we are going to move on to our agenda at this point.
Is there another time that I can speak with the committee, or any other time that I can get one-on-one with this? Because this is not the
Sure.
answer or any of the, I mean, honestly, I was assuming it wasn't going to be handled properly because it hasn't been from the beginning. So is there another time that I can speak with the committee or boards or whoever about this topic personally, and not just given a 5-minute time limit?
Yes, Katie, I'm sure we'll be following up. I would be happy
Absolutely.
to discuss it with you. And as I said, once we have met, perhaps, you know, there'll be a follow-up from our committee. So of course we'll stay in touch. We're happy to do so. Okay. Katie, want to go ahead with our agenda, please?
Okay. The next item on the agenda would be the approval of minutes from the September 20th board meeting, which were included in the packet. Does anyone have any adjustments or corrections to make to the minutes? Okay, I am hearing none. So at this point, I would be looking for a motion to approve the minutes for the September 20th board meeting.
So move.
Okay, Bonnie moves. Is there a second?
So move.
All right, second from Kathy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, meetings for the September 20th. For the September 20th meetings have been approved. Okay, so for the September financial reports. I do apologize that these were so late in getting out. I realized on Friday when I was putting the board packet together that there wasn't anything listed under revenue for the month of September, which I knew was a mistake because Martha had told us that we had had a record-breaking month in terms of passports that we had brought in. So I reached out to Bettina, who reached out to Steve Litko, to see what was going on with that. The information did not get posted until today. So this section will probably be a little bit shorter than usual. I will go ahead and share my screen so that everyone can see. Nope, I keep clicking on the settings button. There we go. Let's see. Google Chrome. Okay, can everyone see the financial report?
Yes,
Okay.
Katie, can you make it a little larger, please?
Yes. Will that work? Oh, let me see if I can.
I think we're cutting off the right
Yeah,
side.
that's, I'm trying to. There we go. Okay. So yeah, like I said, I know we haven't had as much time to oh, I'm sorry. Oh no, sorry, I just saw it come up, come up in the chat. I saw a note addressed to Kate and I thought it said Katie. My mistake. Okay. So real quickly, just to go through the financial minutes, the financial reports. If there's something that you notice afterwards that you had a question about that you didn't get a chance to ask in the meeting, let me know so I can make a note of it for next month. Couple of things, like I mentioned, under revenues for passport fees, we brought in just over $1,700, which, as you can see, is about 1,000 more than this time last year. This is, according to Martha's numbers, this was a record-setting month for us in terms of passport applications. In particular, Anna has been taking on a lot of our passport appointments recently, especially over the last couple of weeks. So we're obviously very, very grateful that we've been able to continue bringing in these numbers, even though we are still even though we're down in age and with Eric leaving. Scrolling through the other note, or the other item that I wanted to make mention of, is that down here, if we're looking at our total expenditures, we are looking at, we've expended 42.09% of our total budget for the year, which puts us within less than a single percentage point of where we were this time last year. So we are very much right on target in terms of spending. Other than that, there has not been anything too unusual with this month in terms of spending. Are there any questions with the revenue and expenditure report? Again, acknowledging that these came much later than usual, so we haven't had as much time to review them as we normally would.
One question, Katie, on the property tax revenue, nothing came in for the month of September. Is that true, or is that something also that they missed?
I would have to double check. I believe that is true. We did, however, receive, I did receive an email from Bettina a few days ago, about a week ago, actually, that we had received a property tax deposit of about $269,000. So that should show up in next month's report. I'll double check just to make sure that that is not an error from this month. But to my understanding, I don't believe it is.
it probably isn't, because last year's was 0 as well at this time of the year, and
Yeah,
probably by the time all the property taxes got in there, that we wouldn't see revenue till October.
yeah.
Okay,
But yeah, we will have a significant deposit showing up in October.
thanks.
Okay. Any other questions with the revenue and expenditure reports?
Are the rental fines at this point just effectively replacement costs? Or are we-
Yes, most of them are replacement costs for lost or otherwise damaged items. Occasionally, there might be a smaller fine if there, for example, we check out these large steam or backpack kits that have lots of little pieces inside of them, and if one or two of them is lost, we don't charge for the replacement cost of the entire item, which could be, 50, 60, even $100 or more dollars. So there may be a few smaller fines in there, but yeah, essentially we're looking at primarily lost and damaged replacement costs.
Thank you.
Okay. And then let me flip over real quickly to the there we go. Let me flip over real quickly to the balance sheet. Zoom in. Okay, so again, the balance sheet, nothing too significant to report here. We appears to be comparable to where we were last year, but if anyone has any questions, please do let me know. And then this last sheet for the library grants and gifts.
So where does the fund balance or the reserve balance show up? I can never find it.
Back on page 2.
Oh, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I scrolled too
Yeah.
far.
So we're at 434.
Gotcha. 271 for 2. Okay.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding the or any final questions regarding the revenue reports?
That $434 figure is our reserve.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the figure that I think we discussed last time. Or-
434, 270, 51.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, if there are no further questions, I would be looking for a motion to approve the financial reports.
I'll motion to approve the financial reports.
Okay, motion from Bill,
I'll second.
a second from Matt. We're going to do a roll call vote for these. So just go down the line. Trustee Hayes.
Aye.
Trustee Shaul.
Aye.
Trustee Zaute.
Aye.
Trustee Meierhoff.
Aye.
Trustee Jerch.
Aye.
Trustee Graziano.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. The financial reports have been approved. Real quickly before we move to the check register, Kathy, I just received a note that our legal counsel, who we asked to join the meeting, has jumped in. I apologize, Mark. I didn't see you pop in right
Yeah.
away. Do we want, should we finish with the financials and then jump into the discussion? I want to make sure that we're,
Yeah, why don't we actually step aside from, because we finish up with, we just have the checks to look at, right?
correct.
So let's put that aside for a moment
Okay,
and allow ourselves to discuss the situation, and we'll step back to the checks. I think we'll be able to do that.
okay, that's
Anybody have a
fine.
problem with that?
Not at all.
Okay. All right, so we will come back to that in a few minutes. So in terms of the discussion regarding the situation from Monday, I know we've heard from the public about the situation that happened. I sent a very abbreviated summary in the packet to all of the trustees to give a brief overview of what happened. And as Kathy mentioned, I have been in contact with multiple people this week. Kathy, our attorney, Mark Ritzman, who very kindly agreed to join our Zoom call today to answer questions that we might have. I've informed the village about what happened, in case they get questions or comments from residents of Lake Bluff. And I've been, I've contacted the families, and yeah, a lot of conversations, and primarily because this is a very unfortunate situation, and it's a difficult one because we, as a public library, we have a responsibility to make sure that the building is as safe as we can make it. We also have a responsibility to make sure that we are, that we're not taking, the loss of library privileges is always a serious business. And this situation is absolutely serious business and deserves serious consequences. But as a public library, we have to be aware of how we are proceeding. I know that that we've received questions about firewalls or filters on the computer as well. And of course, those come with their own their own drawbacks and whatnot. Drawbacks in terms of potentially limiting access to information that patrons might otherwise be entitled to under library policy. So this is going to be a long discussion. Bonnie suggested, and I agree with Kathy, that using our ad hoc committee that we formed a couple of months ago to discuss a different matter would be a good idea, to give us some time to jump more into exploring some of these options. But I would say right now, if there are any questions from the trustees that I or our attorney, Mark Ritzman, can potentially answer in terms of suggested ways to go about this, we're happy to hear them.
Well, I guess the one question I would have is, and thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Ritzman. Have you looked at our policy as far as whether our policy is in keeping with other area libraries? Is it too restrictive? Is it not restrictive enough? And this is a big question, but what do you know about, what is your familiarity with how people do use filters and blocking software to prevent people to prevent library patrons from accessing objectionable sites?
Yeah, that's a good question. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for having me in tonight to talk about this. It's always good to kind of address everybody at once, so we can all kind of ask our questions and have our discussions. This is I appreciate the opportunity to come in and do this. As to your first question, is your policy in line with other policies? And I looked at your, I think it's your general use policy, Katie, is that correct? It's the general library use policy?
Yes, we do. We have that in terms of, yeah, general behavior in the library.
Yeah, so there was a basis there to, I felt anyways, there was a basis there to go ahead and create some sort of ban for this person. Ban's a harsh word. I say ban in as much as, you know, you're not allowed to come to the library for a matter of days to a year to indefinitely, and everything in between. So again, ban sounds pretty harsh, but you know, someone who's, for example, say banned from the library for a week, it sounds, calling it a ban sounds a lot worse. I know what we're talking about here for this type of behavior is probably more than a week, but I'm going to leave that to you folks to decide. As to your question, though, you know, your policy is fine. If anything, you know, I would consider adding an additional computer use policy, which has more restrictions in place.
We do. I was going to say we do have an additional computer use
Let me find
policy.
that. Did I look at that with you the other day, Katie?
To be honest, I can't remember.
Yeah.
I want to say yes, but I could
Get in
be.
here.
I could be mistaken.
No.
Jenny, you need to mute.
All right, we got it.
Oh, is there? Okay, let's see. Our computer okay, I'm pulling that up now. This is not the policy. I don't think this is the. No, here it is. This is. Let's see, patrons.
Yeah, we have our
Maybe-
computer
maybe
use
Mark
policy.
No, we looked at a
The
general. We look.
policy.
This is not the policy I looked at the other day.
Mark, would you like
we
me to
could-
share the screen for the general use policy?
I'm looking at it right now.
Oh, you.
I'm sorry, the general use policy. Let me pull the general use policy. I'm looking at the computer. I've just come across this computer use policy. Let me just so I can see everything here. Lake Bluff. No, I'm working from my phone here because I'm out of the office right now. And so seeing it, I'd rather pull it up my computer screen and just Google it and pull it up.
That's fine. Whichever one you're looking at, I'll pull it up on the screen so that, and share the screen so that the other trustees can see it. So the two policies that are being discussed, we have our computer use policy and the library user conduct policies.
Perfect. That's the magic language, library user conduct.
Okay, let me go ahead
where-
and share that screen.
Where I would draw your attention is to section T, like Tom.
Let me get there. Let me find this. Where on your website would be the easiest way to find this? I'm at your website. and
Yeah,
that's-
it's under, if you go to About Us and then financial, legal, and other information.
Good.
And oops.
And it was going
There
to
we
be
go.
under our general.
No, computer on the right.
I have computer
Library
use policy. I
computer
have I have computer use policy. What was the behavior policy? Library
Library
user
user
conduct policy.
conduct
Those are
policy.
the filters.
Okay. So to bring everybody up to speed, our bases to go ahead and ban this person, I would rely on library user conduct policy provision A, that we have to respect the rights of other library users and staff. That's the most on point thing we have in here. Circling back to you wanted to draw my attention to a certain provision.
Yeah, in reading through this in preparation for this meeting, this is Matt Zaute, one of the trustees. Section T, we speak explicitly to or specifically, I should say, to our filter policy.
Which policy are we looking at?
Computer use, section T.
Okay, computer use policy. Mine only goes to section, okay, following use is prohibited. I don't have a section T.
Go down,
The-
scroll down. It's the second page of the document.
For
He might
the,
be, he might be on the conduct one.
No,
I'm looking at Lake Bluff Library computer use policy, INF-3, use of library provided personal computers.
yes, okay, that's the correct policy.
Mine only goes to S. On page 2, it goes to S, then it becomes INF-4 : use of
Oh.
library provided wireless network.
Oh, that's annoying. I do have it up on my screen. I don't know. I'm
Okay,
sharing on my screen.
let's try
I
it.
can-
I'll try that.
I
I'll
can see
squint.
it.
Yeah, I'll squint. T, parent, legal guardians. Okay. What's your question?
Well, no, I only bring this up because this is the only area where I found we speak specifically to our filters and how there's a delineation between what's filtered in the adult department, where this individual was, versus the children's department.
I think this is excellent provision. I think this is excellent language because it does do that. It delineates. We have a children's department that is, those ones have filters, and the adults do not. They provide wider access. So I think this is excellent. That's an excellent way to handle the issue. And yeah, I think that's excellent. You know, we could beef up our computer policy a little more and deal with adults to essentially say, like, you may not access these types of sites. Now, in doing that, and I've done those before, we can do that. One of the things we do have to be careful of, we can set the terms, but it would probably be getting us into some trouble if we said you can't access sites that are unpopular opinions, for example. You know, we don't want to do that. We could say you can't access pornography, you can't access child pornography, you can't access prohibited, basically things that are prohibited or that we're allowed to regulate under free speech principles, and say, look, we don't have to give you access to that, and for lack of a better way to put it, we can go ahead and block those sites. But something like, I don't know, gambling, for example, now that it's legal in Illinois, you know, that's a tougher one to say, well, you can't do that. Or maybe that's not a good example because that's maybe commerce. Maybe another example is just saying you can't access religious information from our computers. We couldn't do that.
Hey, Mark, this is Bonnie. What about anything that would be considered obscene?
For web?
That's an excellent. What was the set thought? There's excuse me, obscene
or weapons.
Yeah, that's another excellent question. I think weapons is really the tough one. Well, they're both tough, right? And I don't want to. I'm going to butcher this in advance, but I'm also trying to make it simple to understand. Obscenity is kind of tough to define, and I say that because the Supreme Court has given us, the Supreme Court of the United States has given us some guidance on that, but they haven't drawn a hard line rule that, for example, says a picture of a naked man and woman is not obscene, but a picture of a naked man and woman engaged in sexual acts is obscene. They haven't given us bright line rules like that. And one of the hard things with obscenity is that one person's obscenity is another's art. If you take, for example, like a reproduction of Michelangelo's David in the Fine Art Museum of New York, some people would object to that and call that obscene. Other people would say, you're crazy, that's fine art from thousands of years ago. And so, again, deciding any bright line rule as to what's obscene and what is not it's a difficult task. Can we say, anything obscene is not permitted? Yeah, we can say that. But then who's deciding ultimately there's a decision maker there, whether that's the library director or the department head or the poor librarian that's assigned that time and hour that says, sorry, you're out of here, that's obscene. There's somebody who has to make that decision. And so that's a pretty difficult task for that person. Not to say we shouldn't say looking obscene, but it gets hard. Now, what is certainly unprotected is child pornography. That's just, there's no exception for that. You can't do that. Pornography, I think that we can limit. Weapons is a difficult one. Unfortunately, it would seem, well-meaning, well-intentioned people would say, look, we don't need anybody getting instructions on how to build a pipe bomb. There's just no good need for that. But that is again a difficult one. And I would say I don't know that we can necessarily limit access to that, because it is also, what is it ultimately? It's educational. As kind of in this context, it's kind of a twist of that term, but that's what it is. It's educational material, unfortunately, for a nefarious purpose. But I don't know that we can, block access to anything to do with weapons. We can try. There's another thing is we can always just say, you know what, we're willing to be a test case, and we're going to make this policy really, really restrictive, and just wait, let somebody go ahead and bring us to court over it and tell us, take us to task and say, this is, you're breaking the law by trying to pass and enforce this policy. We can say, okay, sue us. And then we go to court and let the court decide, were we out of line or were we not? I mean, most people don't want to be a test case, but we can say, sure, we're willing to be a test case and do that.
Mark,
And the nice thing about, yes.
sorry. I'm Kathy Meierhoff. I'm another trustee. And I apologize for interrupting you there. When you wrap that up, I have a question for you.
I guess that's pretty much, I was just gonna say, like, we can be like I was just saying, we can choose to be a test case and kind of put a lightning rod on ourselves by saying we're going to be the sheriff that's going to regulate everything and see how it goes. One of the nice things I was going to say about our policies is we can always change them. So if we do something and somebody says, hey, your policy is your policy is way too restrictive, and if you don't change it, I'm gonna sue you for this, for abridging my First Amendment rights to access information in the library. And we could say, you know what, we've taken that under advisement and we're going to go ahead and change our policy. No need to sue us. We're going to change our policy. I wouldn't necessarily recommend saying, let's just make this really restrictive policy and see who calls our bluff. I wouldn't recommend that, but it's to say, if we're wrong, we have the ability to change our policy in a sense. That's it. I'm wrapped up.
Okay, thanks. Mark, it's come to my attention, there's a law, I'm going to say SIPA, I'm sure that's not correct. It has to do with children.
Yes.
And,
I think it's the Children Internet Protection Act. I think that's what that stands for.
Children,
Yes.
SIPA, okay, SIPA.
You're saying it right, and you are saying it right.
So there's, Katie and staff looked at libraries in our community and our neighborhood, so to speak, to see what similarity or differences there were in I'm going to say firewalling or filtering practices. And most of the libraries pretty much do what we do, except Cook Memorial in Libertyville. And there was some suggestion that because of SIPA laws, they have a different point of view. Could you explain what that situation might be?
Yeah, that's a very good question. SIPA laws the application of SIPA to us depends on whether or not we accept federal funding for I believe it's reduced internet service prices. But the long and the short of it is we would know, and if we don't know, say off the cuff, just through a little digging, if we were accepting those federal funds, because if we're accepting those federal funds, then SIPA is applicable to us. And if SIPA is applicable to us, then we have to have some sort of internet filtering software or some sort of internet filtering software or service that restricts the ability of children to access pornography, child pornography. And that may be all computers for those two categories. And the third being material that is, quote, harmful to minors. Now, the key to this filtering software, though, is it has to have an on-off switch under SIPA so that adults can browse freely, but children can be protected. Now, as to are you with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. So as to, again, if we are not accepting those federal funds, and this is not applicable to us, and we don't want to, anything we want to do is voluntary.
Okay.
But with the way the library is set up, it sounds like where we have a children's section and we have an adult section, this is kind of one of those in practice, I would say that's a good setup, because let's just assume we're subject to SIPA. We can put that on all of our children's software, and our children's computers, and by having an adult section and a children's section, we don't have to worry about adults saying, we want to be able to access the computers, turn off the filtering software, because we say kids go use the kids section. I mean, it's a geographical boundary, so to speak, by saying kids go use the kids computers, adults use the adult computers, and any adults that want to access sensitive information, they don't have to ask us to turn off the software because it's a different part of the library. So I think in practice, even if we're subject to SIPA, the way things are set up, I think we're in good shape.
Mark, there are also common areas in the library that are accessible by adults and children. The entire library is really open. The only difference is where the books are, where the movies are.
Right. So there's computer screens there that can be used and viewed by anybody?
Yes.
Okay. So for those computers, we could go ahead and put some sort of filtering software on there. The filtering software is difficult, and to my knowledge, I don't have extensive knowledge on how it's used in person and in practice, but what I do know about it is that at least it's rather difficult to turn on and off, because you need an administrator to do that now. And on top of that, the filtering software is not, the tech is just not quite there with reality yet. it's going to miss a lot, and it's also going to be overly broad. So it's going to filter things it shouldn't, and it's going to let stuff slip through that it shouldn't. You know, so it's missing the things that it should catch and catching things it shouldn't. In you know, in practice. And one of the, again, I don't have extensive knowledge on that, but that's been my experience on it. And one of the other things that's difficult about it is the administrator access portion. When somebody says, I want to use the computer, I need you to turn off my filtering software. And, you know, we don't want to ask why the adult wants to do that, because it could be, you know, something really sensitive. Let's say somebody's exploring a transition to another gender, or somebody's exploring abortion, or something like that, that are kind of, it would have a chilling effect on somebody that wants that software turned off. But as far as actually turning it off, how do we do that? Is that power we have in the library that our department head can turn off, or do we have to go through the company we're paying for that and get them to go ahead and turn it off, which can take minutes to hours to days in some cases. And sometimes the companies that provide the software don't even have the ability to turn it on or off, or parts of it. It's like, or to turn parts of it on or off. It's either all or nothing. You know, they can't say, okay, well, we'll stop filtering this type of questions. It's kind of an all or nothing thing, but getting that turned off in practice in real time can be very difficult. And sometimes they say we can't turn it off because it's, you know, it's a proprietary information kind of thing. So again, it's the tech isn't quite caught up with the world as we know it yet, at least to my knowledge, as far as filtering services go. And it's just kind of an all or nothing approach. Just, I'm sorry to be so verbose there. Is that that answer your question?
Anu, does that answer your question?
Yeah, my question wasn't about the administrative hassle of turning on or off filtering software. It was more to do with making sure we think about how our library is set up and the fact that there are common areas. That's all. You know, I think a lot of this we would, that's okay. I think a lot of this we would dig into, you know, dig into in this committee. And I'd love to have maybe, I suggest maybe Matt join us. I know he's got some IT background. You know, as far as I know, again, you guys know that my background is primarily working for Abbott and AbbVie. You know, if somebody needed administrative rights on a computer, our IT department had people who could sign into anybody's computer as an administrator and do stuff that you as a user couldn't do. So in my mind, rather simple. I don't think it's that onerous, but I could be wrong. And I think it's something we should be looking at. I appreciate your you know, jumping on with us tonight, Mark, and providing us, you know, some things where we can begin a discussion of how to, you know, how to tighten up some of our policies and our practices so that, you know, this doesn't happen again. Try to prevent it. We got to do it.
Excellent. You know, you should have interrupted me right away and said, hey, Mark, answer the question asked here. I didn't ask you about that. I wanted to know how to fix this in our facilities. And, you know, one quick thought I have on that is I'm sure you're aware there's little, I mean, this is just a simple thing I just thought of is, you know, those kind of not devices, but little screens you can put over your computer screen so that only the person standing in front of it can see it. That's a simple fix, I think.
And that's really good because, you know, in thinking about this, we can always, someone, even if we had filters, but someone or in the appropriate areas so that no children's section could ever be exposed to something like this. Someone borrows a laptop and they're an adult, they can go search what they want. But if they have that screen on it, at least it protects the peripheral views of that screen. I think that's maybe a great short-term solution that's low cost that we should look at for laptops.
Right. That could, you know, like you said, that's the low cost, simple solution. So that would be one.
I would like to, I just wouldn't want to get away from our computer use guidelines. I've lost track of the title of that form, but there are some adults who might be offended by the use of certain things going on computers. So we should be respectful of anyone's feelings about this. Mark, what's the duty of the library in an open space to protect users, in this case, certainly very much importantly, children, from viewing computers? that could be, the user could be using objectionable information. We've talked about, for instance, relocating our computers. We're thinking about that. We've talked about our librarian kind of moseying around and viewing a screen. There's debate about that. Matt and Bonnie, you just made a great suggestion about a screen for the screen sort of a thing.
Privacy screen.
Privacy screen. But what is the library's duty to protect children from not viewing materials that we would all agree are certainly inappropriate?
That's a good question, and again, kind of difficult to answer because there's just no bright line rule. And when I say that, I mean, it's not like there's a certain set of rules that in the library, you must protect the eyes of children that don't apply out in the street. Let's say you're walking down the street on, the north side of Chicago or the south side of Chicago. There's all sorts of scary things to see. And anywhere, it doesn't have to be Chicago. Anywhere in the White is Chicago, because there's, a lot going on down there. And anywhere in the world, what is the duty of people to, or stores or anybody in the public to prevent kids from seeing something that maybe they shouldn't? And, I don't want to get into some philosophical debate here, but there's a lot of questions. What rights should children have to access information? Do only adults have rights to all information? Do kids have rights? And if kids don't have rights until a certain age, then whose responsibility is it to protect them? Is it the library's responsibility? Is it the school's responsibility? Is it the police's? Is it the parents? Is it, the list is endless, right?
Yeah.
And so saying, what is the library's duty to protect children from seeing things on someone else's computer that they shouldn't see? I mean, there's no heightened rule that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Once you step in the library must do X, Y, Z to make sure kids don't see it, other than the SIPA law, really.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
I guess I'm being verbose, but to boil that down, I'd say we do the best we can. Good faith. We do the best we can in good faith. But part of the whole concept of filtering, as then is it's like a balancing of rights. Okay, we want to make sure kids don't see anything objectionable. Well, let's just take away all the computers. Nobody can see anything objectionable then. Let's take all the books out too, so that nobody can be offended. And so somebody by limiting access to these sites that will be quote unquote, harmful to kids, you're also limiting somebody else's access who wants to see that site. Otherwise, they wouldn't be searching it out.
Right.
So it's this difficult balancing of interests. And we're caught in the middle.
Yeah.
There's hi, it's Bonnie again. Eliza's suggested we take a closer look at section M like Mary, which is not visible on the Zoom right now, as well as wireless policy section F like Frank. So I just thought that was in the chat from Eliza. Thank you, Eliza.
Yeah, and the F one from our wireless policy, so it is not the computer use policy.
Wireless network usage policy.
Yes.
Okay, I'll pull that up. Okay.
Section M for the computer use policy refers to illegal activities or activities that interfere with or disrupt the equipment, network users, or services are prohibited. I think that can be, that seems like it.
I'm sorry, what site is it? Which policy is that? I'm jumping between.
The one that I just read is part of the computer use policy. So the same document we were looking at previously. I moved my screen up just a little bit so that the section M was clearly visible.
Section M says the library may provide scheduled computer classes.
No. No, it's a different.
I'm looking. It's a different M
policy.
The scheduled computer classes, I have that as section O.
Okay, so then what I'm looking for is above that, then where it says the library reserves the right to monitor public computers.
One above it.
Or illegal activities or activities that interfere.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, what's the question?
I think Eliza
It's
was
not a
just pointing
question.
she was just pointing that out as a
relevant. Yeah, I just as Eliza had identified it, I thought it would be useful to direct the board's attention to this section of the policy, which again may also warrant some revision.
I think that's pretty good language. I think that's pretty good language.
Right. I mean, to me, the most pertinent point is the last sentence, which reads,
Yes.
further, we ask that computer users be sensitive to the use of computers in a public environment,
Yeah.
which is used by people of all ages.
I agree. I think that's very good, strong language. I mean, that's completely on point to what we're dealing with here.
Yeah, I don't know if it's possible, and again, we could compare other libraries in the area, what their use policy looks like. Is it worth providing any sort of example, such as violent
Yes.
images,
Yep.
obscenity,
Well, and that language is more specifically used in the wireless policy.
Okay, so maybe if the group's interested, I certainly am. I'd love to jump over if Katie, I think, is
Yes.
driving and sharing her screen. We can jump over to the wireless policy for a minute.
Okay, can everyone see that?
Yep.
Thank you
Wireless
for
network?
enlarging it.
You're welcome.
It's F.
Follow- There we go.
F as in Frank,
Yeah. It's
advertising, soliciting.
Yes.
yes.
Meaner and decent, yeah.
Yeah, that's good language. I mean, this covers if somebody's using their own computer in the library. Using the library's, Wi-Fi signal to basically do this stuff on their computer. I mean, that gives us a good basis. All of this gives us basis to say, look, you violated our policy. You're going to have to lose your library privileges for a little while here. I think that's, strong language that allows us to do that.
Well, and I think too, this maybe is an opportunity to sync up our wireless policy with our general use and computer use policy. So they all kind of read the same. And I like the specificity of this one as opposed to the generality of the section F in the previous one. The being sensitive to the use of in a public environment. This one we're reading right now is much more specific, and maybe we can extend this to the other two so that they all read consistently.
Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. One of the things that we do is, we don't have, strange to say it this way, but we don't have the same level of control, and we don't, quite frankly, want to be the sheriff exercising control over people on their personal computers that are just using the library's Wi-Fi signal. And I say that because how do we apply that to somebody who's sitting in their car outside the library, just jumping on the signal? If we exercise that control and say we're going to be the sheriff, then what happens when we don't act as sheriff? And so that's just to say I like this language, but we should sync them up. It's just I do want to caution you to say we have a little less control over people using our Wi-Fi signal than we do people using our computers.
Mm-hmm. Right, but the irony here is the Wi-Fi one is more tightly girded.
It is. That's exactly it. And so I'm saying we should.
Okay.
That was a way to say, like, if something in this Wi-Fi one that we really like, we could probably port that over to our other one, but maybe not necessarily our more strongly worded policy to the Wi-Fi policy. In this case, our more strongly worded policy is our Wi-Fi policy.
Okay.
Mark, I was hoping that you might explain, the question was raised earlier about why essentially we can't ban this individual for life, why a 1-year ban or a 2-year ban. Would you just speak to essentially the legal reason why a lifetime ban is not a good option?
You can ban them for as long as you want. You could go ahead and do a lifetime ban here if you'd like. The more severe the punishment, I think the more likely it is that you'll get pushback on it. And this person could say, they could mount some sort of challenge and try to take us to court over it longer term. And, eventually saying, look, I'm a taxpayer here too. You can't take my privileges.
I think though, like, this is Bonnie again.
Some offense, you'd say, well, this is so egregious, you can have your privileges taken away for life. Where is that line in the sand? I don't know, but I wouldn't start there. Somebody who's a repeat offender, sure. This guy does this. We tell him you're out for a year, or you're out for 6 months or 2 weeks or whatever it is. and they come back and within a week, they're back to their old tricks. You say, okay, we didn't get your attention last time. We're very serious. Now you're banned for life. You know, whatever that is, but I think and I don't have a legal basis to say that. I just think jumping to that, you know, the highest punishment we can dole out is probably, I don't know that I would necessarily recommend it, but that's kind of really up to you guys. I don't, you know, there's nothing legal that says what you can or can't do. It's entirely up to you. You may say, this is such an egregious offense that this guy is sorry, he's gone for life. And then, you know, is it possible he mounts some sort of challenge? It is. I don't know what exactly and what form that takes, but you know, that would be something for the courts to figure out if that's what the route he wanted to take.
Mark,
Well, sorry,
excuse me,
Kathy, go ahead and after you.
just
Thank
one
you.
clarification. Would, if in this situation, if the individual whose privileges were suspended for a period of time was not a resident of Lake Forest, or excuse me, of Lake Bluff, would the strictness of our ban, so to speak, be more supportable?
That's an excellent question. And you're putting me in kind of like a hypothetical, almost law school exam type question here, because I think you've taken away his argument to say, look, I'm a taxpayer and you can't take that away, that privilege away from me as a taxpayer. If he's not a resident, that kind of line of thinking or argument has evaporated, but you still have all these First Amendment claims, which are, you know, much stronger than that. And this is a judgment call for you guys. In a weird way to put it, it's not so much a legal decision as it is a business decision as to what the appropriate punishment is. You know, kind of shooting from the hip here. Does that give us a better grounding or leg to stand on to say, well, this guy's not actually a resident of this library. You know, he has alternate libraries to go access his material. For lack of a better way to put it, it feels like you could hand out a little bit stronger of a punishment, but I don't have a legal basis or any logical necessary way to say that. I don't know that it's a more, you know, stronger position. It kind of has that feel to it, but that's not, you know, that's not a legal argument. Let me put it that way.
Well, thanks.
That's a very interesting question.
Hey, Mark, just on a different topic, it's Bonnie again. In terms of some of our other policies, I believe we have appeal processes, and certainly, you know, I think we've all dealt with health insurance and maybe getting denied a health claim, but there's an appeal process.
Yeah.
I would think that, you know, somewhere between banning someone from the library for whatever period of time and a Supreme Court case, there would be a potential appeal process to the library and to the board if someone wished to reinstate their library privileges. Okay, good.
There is. Jumping down to the user conduct policy, in the last paragraph here, in the event of a suspension greater than 3 days, the patron may appeal the decision to the Board of Trustees at a regular meeting, provided that it's submitted in compliance with the Open Meetings Act.
And I would recommend that. That's a good policy. You want everybody to have due process.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Katie.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any other questions that anyone has for Mark?
The only other, and I'm kind of looking at this from the other side of the coin, because, you know, this is very problematic behavior, but I think we also need to be very careful with some of the demands or requests that, you know, that we're fielding at this point around this patron's privacy. I mean, whatever he was looking at, I think that can't be shared with other folks, right? And some of the questions, that Allie's posed, or members from the community, we want to be very careful there as well.
Absolutely. You cannot, you know, like if, I don't want to start guessing at obscene websites here, but no, you can't say, you know, this guy visited obscene website Y or obscene website X. No, you can't.
Right. When she's asking what types of pornography, I mean, we just can't. That's
no. You
right?
Can't do that. You can absolutely not. You can say he was looking at pornography, and you can leave it at that.
All right.
I would not. Definitely don't try to be specific on what exactly he was looking at. especially if you're, if you're going to, issue some sort of ban. If you were going to say, oh, well, he was looking at a certain type of pornography that we don't think is that big a deal, so we're not going to ban him at all. I mean, not that in that situation, I'd say you should tell him what kind it was, but yeah, you know what? I'm going to step back on that. And before I even go any further, just say, look, don't share that information. That's kind of akin to a register. It's kind of akin to like a library, circulation record in a way.
Right. Okay.
Hey, just another something that may be worth considering, or maybe it's in place, I don't know, but it's my understanding, right? We have laptops that can be taken out from the front desk, and we have laptops in the library as well, permanently in the carrels, etc. Do we have a policy or practice by which search history is cleaned routinely?
Yes, our computer reservation software that we use for patrons to log into a computer, whether it's their library card or a guest pass, that once their computer session ends, the time runs out, the software immediately wipes everything from the computers as a matter of patron privacy and starts it completely clean for the next person. There is no way for us to access that information.
And what about the computers that aren't checked out?
Same
only-
thing.
Okay.
They're only operable once you log in under the software and once the session ends.
Okay, so all history is cleared.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. In the interest of time, I am going to suggest that further discussion be delegated to the ad hoc committee, which I know we will be working on getting a meeting scheduled for that very soon. And in the meantime, this a written notice will be issued immediately to this person to inform them that they are banned from the library for the period of 1 year, was what we had talked about before.
And Katie, that could be discussed further by the board tonight.
Yes, I was going to say it's not something that requires board approval, but if we want to discuss that further, we could do that. All right, well, thank you so much, Mark, for coming by. Thank you for answering our questions. I know I've talked to you a few times over the last few days, but I really appreciate you coming by and providing your perspective for us. I think you said it's a balancing act, and we have a lot of obligations as a public institution to consider. So we really appreciate your guidance on this.
Yes,
I appreciate.
I would second that. Thank you very much, Mark.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mark.
You bet. That's what we're here for, and I appreciate the opportunity to come in and address you all about it at the same time and kind of meet some of you guys, even if only virtually at this point. So I appreciate the opportunity. And Katie, I think it sounds like you let me know what you'd like to do and how I can help moving forward. It kind of sounds like we may be, revising some policies ultimately out of this. But
Yeah,
you let me know when and where you'd like my help, and I'm happy to do it.
I will absolutely do that. Thank you so very, very much. Really appreciate it.
You bet. Have a good evening, everybody.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, you too.
Bye now.
Okay. Kathy, did you want to discuss that the general terms of the suspension, or
Yeah,
should
let's
we
just open this up to discussion before we all fresh in our minds. I want to thank you all for listening and for making great suggestions. I've been taking notes. I'm sure you all have been. So any just comments, please, if there's anything on your mind, if there's any questions you have, please, why don't we just sort of do a roll call. Just, I'll start with Matt. Any thoughts?
Just a few.
There you go, Matt.
Yeah. How much time do we have? I mean, in principle, this is repugnant to me, and I think it's important that Ally and, you know, whatever social media she wants to broadcast this on, understand that, you know, we're all parents and or, you know, grandparents or have families, and that we want to keep this in line with our community and its values. But at the same time, this is a free society, and as we see globally, the value of free speech is paramount. So, you know, we have a tight line to draw here. I think to the extent that we can act locally, I'm in favor of making our policies more tightly girded. We don't need, you know, weapons are a principal concern for me, the fourth and every day in the news notwithstanding. So, you know, I'd like to see if that's even something we can contemplate as well beyond just what's obscene. Where I would strike caution, though, is that I remember in high school a debate we had about the National Endowment of the Arts and Robert Mapplethorpe. And while I found his material objectionable, it's, you know, 30 years later, a healthy debate that still resonates with me. And I would not have had that debate had I not been exposed to it. So that's the other side of the coin. However, I do want to, you know, there's a certain, I think, value and ethos to our community, and I would like to see that protected, especially at all costs within a children's area. And so if that even means, you know, borrowed laptops do not go downstairs or things like that, maybe there's other considerations we can make. But that's obviously, I think, for all of us, a principal concern. The other thing I would add is I think we need to look a lot closer at this individual and whether this is perhaps not the first instance.
All right, thanks, Matt. I'm just doing this randomly. Bill, do you have any comments for us?
No, I mean, I looked into a number of different things that Mark answered questions on, as far as filtering and having you know, having filters on and then having filters taken off when people need it. But I think, again, some of the locations of the computers, the screens that we're talking about for privacy are all things that we can put in place. I think there's enough language in the different policies for the Wi-Fi and the computer usage that tying that up will allow us to keep things a little bit tighter. But this seems to be an issue that's come up with a number of other libraries as well. And, you know, without violating any First Amendment rights, we've kind of got to be careful. But I think one of the things, on again to what Matt just said about this one individual, if it's not a Lake Bluff resident and there is any kind of history behind this person before, maybe we can look at extending the ban past 1 year, and you know, keeping that in mind as well. But I think a number of ideas from today sort of come up that I think we can certainly do things a little differently to improve it, and go forward with that.
All right, thanks, Bill. Jenny.
Hi, sorry for my disruptiveness before. I just wanted to say thank you to Katie and Kathy for all your research and for bringing this to our attention. And I want to say to the families that were at the library, I'm so sorry this happened. And this is an opportunity for us, I think, there were some great ideas put forth as far as the screens and looking at our policies and talking to staff and brainstorming. And I think, you know, our hope is that the committee, we're also going to stay in touch with the families that were here tonight so that we can keep them updated, because it is really important to us that we're addressing this. So, but thank you to everyone. I thought everyone's ideas were really good about how we can move forward and improve what we have in place.
Great, thanks, Jenny. Bonnie.
I agree that I think we need to consider the body of facts around this case and this individual. I also want to say that the First Amendment does not protect obscenity. Therefore, I feel that, and looking at some of our policies and things, I see some language that's been taken out of the Supreme Court ruling. Reno versus ACLU, things about it's in our user Wi-Fi user, Wi-Fi policy. So I definitely think we need to tighten some things up, and I get concerned. I'm married to a lawyer. Obscenity is not covered by the First Amendment. Okay, whether it's, obscene violence, obscene pornography, whatever. So I worry when I hear people waving that First Amendment, First Amendment, First Amendment. I'm going to say it for the third time. Obscenity is not covered in the First Amendment, especially, I feel this is my own addendum, if you will, in a public place where we know there are children.
Kathy, real quickly before you continue, Bonnie, I just one thing I wanted to jump in on. For me, when I've mentioned before First Amendment, for me, I am looking at First Amendment a lot in terms of if we were to install filters, how that might affect someone's ability to access information, not obscene information, but information, for example, for a lot of these filters, one of the common problems is that they're known to block access to websites that provide important health information because of the images that are included on the page or some of the words that are used. And, to use that just as an example, that would be in direct violation of someone else's First Amendment rights to access that information. So I think because the viewing of obscene materials goes against our library policy. That's not something we allow. So it's not something that I just want to make it clear that I don't want to suggest that we tolerate that in the name of the First Amendment rights. But for me, that's where the First Amendment issues are potentially come up. So I just think it's that angle is just worth keeping in mind as we continue discussion.
Right. And I think the other thing that was maybe not clear thus far in tonight's conversation is that according to our policy, the first one we looked at, which I think was, or maybe it was the second one, computer use, it states that there are filters on both the adults and the children's laptops. And if anyone needs a filter removed, to request it. We don't have to ask why.
I'm so sorry. I spoke over you, Bonnie. Go ahead and finish.
No, that again, I don't know if Katie, you can bring up that policy again about the children and adult laptops have filters.
That is something I am currently investigating. I sent an email to our contact at CVI who manages our computers. I know that our youth computers do have filters. Eliza has spoken to that. She, that's present in the children's department. From what I have heard, just from talking to staff who have been here longer than I have, the idea is that any filters on the adult computers are primarily filtering out viruses or malware or
sorry, what was the first thing? They're primarily filtering out
viruses, like viruses or malware. However, I don't know the specifics. So I have put out an email to our contact, one of our contact people at CBI for more information about that. I have not heard back from them, but when I do, I can provide that information.
Great. And again, I don't know that we're going to be able to put everything and discuss everything and decide everything to put in place to reduce and prevent the likelihood of this happening again today. That's why I think we need to get to the ad hoc committee, but I'll just conclude my statements. Thank you, Kathy, for going around the horn here. Yeah, I think we do need to consider the specifics around this individual and this case tonight. Warrants a little more discussion. The prevention we send to probably the ad hoc committee.
Yeah, Janie, I'm gonna get you just a second if you don't mind. Bonnie, you had sent an email and you had questioned why this person hadn't been charged with, if you want to talk.
Yeah, I just, again, I was a little surprised that the police officer stated that this behavior would have been disorderly conduct, maybe?
Yes, that's what he said.
And, I just looked up disorderly conduct in the state of Illinois. It's things like public urination and public drunkenness. And I thought, well, is this really disorderly conduct? Is to me, it seemed more like, well, endangering the mental health of a child is potential
Well, I think Allie in her Facebook post explored that conundrum, and one of her concerns was if the family were to press charges, then the children would be in a position of having to discuss this perhaps more than they're willing to do so and take a formal position. So, and Katie, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the police indicated in order to press charges that would have to come from the family. Am I correct, or did I?
He did not. We did not specifically discuss that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. I think when he was describing disorderly conduct, even though it was a child who saw what had happened, the patron was on the main floor using a computer that was designated for adult use. So I think those factors came into play when the police, were evaluating how to assess the situation. Of course, I am not a police officer. I am not a lawyer. That is just my my speculation. But he did say that while on the police's end, there were limitations in terms of what actions they could pursue, the library was free to pursue consequences within our own policies.
Okay.
And enforce them as we saw fit.
All right. Janie, I'm sorry. I kept you waiting.
That's quite all right. That gave me chance to look up this quote that has just through this whole situation since I first became aware of it, made me think of an associate justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Potter Stewart, who is famous for his very pithy quote saying, "I can't define obscenity, but I know it when I see it." And that's part of the crux of the matter here too. And once again, I have no doubt that the little girl involved viewed some pornography, and I have no doubt that it upset her tremendously. And I can't even, I can't even tell our public how sorry I am that this happened. That being said, I have to agree with what everyone else has said so far, is that we really need to look into this, consider any prior history that this patron had with our library, and consider whether or not this person is in fact a taxpayer to our library district. And I would certainly think that a minimum of 1 year, as far as his not being welcome in the building, is quite appropriate. And I think that we could certainly consider making that longer.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. I certainly concur with what everybody said. Bonnie, I jotted down when Mark was talking about obscenity. He said it's tough to define. There's been some guidance from the Supreme Court, but still there's a lot of murkiness there. So it's just a challenging topic. Yeah, I think we are all in agreement that this is a situation that never should have occurred. We're very, very sorry to the family. We're sorry to the staff who works very hard, and some of them are there and some of them are not there, and to the trustees and to the community, because this is not what Lake Bluff is all about. And we regret the situation, and we apologize on behalf of the library.
Kathy, did we hear from Jenny?
Yes, we did.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay.
Jenny?
Oh, that's right. We did. I had my head down and I was taking notes. Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Did I
Thank you.
catch you off in any way, Jenny?
No, I got to speak. Thank you, Kathy.
So I think what we're in agreement that we're going to be doing here is putting together an ad hoc committee just as soon as possible. I would like to serve on that. I would ask Bonnie too. She had brought the suggestion to my attention this morning. And it's funny, at the last board meeting, we agreed that we had another issue that had been resolved, and we felt that we should just keep this committee on hand so that it's ready to go. I think as I'm listening to the concerns and the topics, it almost seems like there are some trustees and individuals who can float in and out of the committee based on their strengths and their expertise. What we'll want to do is get together as soon as possible and get a group together, make a to-do list and assign duties, and have a timeline and follow-ups. Certainly with Mark, we'll be changing some language. We want to make sure it's appropriately done. I think we want to review and revise computer policies, including wireless guides. We want to discuss thoroughly and understand more about filters and firewalls and blocking software. We wanted to see what other libraries are doing and what their policies may read. We want to talk about suspension of services policies. We want to talk about supervising public computers, those that people could walk by and view. We want to I'm just looking over my notes. I'm sure there's more, and as we sit down, we'll go through this. As far as the staff's recommendation of a 1-year suspension of all services to this individual, it's been brought to my attention, and I may be wrong, but at this point, I'm been informed that he is not a resident of the village of Lake Bluff. He was using a out-of-district card. I don't know if that's the correct term. He doesn't live in Lake Bluff, so he had a non-Lake Bluff card, which interestingly enough was expired. I asked Katie how our computer would have allowed access. I've used the public computers. You put in your library card and you log in. So that's another thing we have to follow up with our
Yeah,
services.
Our system should not have allowed that in the first place. I mean, our computer use policy, if someone has an expired library card, we will give them a guest pass at the desk, no questions asked. But the fact that it let this person log in with a library card that was not in good standing is something that we need to investigate.
Yeah. So we have a lot of work to do. In the meantime, the recommendation is to suspend this individual for a year. I would suggest we phrase that as a year and to be reviewed. And certainly as we look into, we can discuss what else we need to look into. We can amend that decision under, it's not binding. We can amend it if we need to do so. And as Mark's pointed out, if the time period is met and we're not in any way pleased with the behaviors, then we can make again, a more stringent suspension. So let's let the Well, I'll ask you, what do you want me to do? What do you recommend for the suspension period? Any thoughts on that?
Was that addressed to me, Kathy?
No, to the trustees.
To the trustees, okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else we know about this individual's prior use of our library?
I will, going back, I did review, previous documented incidents that we've got, you know, incident reports that go back well over a decade. It appears that this person, was written up for, at least twice regarding public computer use. But it does not appear that there were consequences other than ending the computer session or asking them to leave for the day.
In light of that, Kathy, I'd recommend we change our language to indefinitely. It's not permanently, but at least, you know, so that there is some out to it, but I would say indefinitely. I think not only does that help to alleviate some of perhaps our community concerns, but given that context, I think it's warranted.
Yeah, I wouldn't want indefinitely to be misleadingly less than.
Oh, yeah, so that's a good point. I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
It would be 1 year. Just if we could phrase it beyond, you know, that 1 year is not by any means you're off the hook kind of a thing. But
Definitely not to be less than a year. My concern is maybe we don't use the word permanently, although I wouldn't be opposed to that word, but maybe just an abundance of caution and doesn't indefinitely give us a longer period than a year. But I recognize what you're saying. It certainly shouldn't be less.
yeah, I mean, he could come in and be questioning from time to time. It's indefinite over, and I don't want him in the building, and we don't want that conversation. Anybody else want to feed in on this?
Just, it's more of a follow-up thought, which is, how do we ensure that this individual doesn't come back to the library and request a guest pass?
Well, I will, normally, yes, that is a, that is a, you know, that if it was some unknown person, because this person has used the library a fair amount, they are recognizable to a lot of the staff. It's not that doesn't necessarily include everyone, but a good number of our staff are familiar with this person, so they would know to come find me if they were to come into the building and use the computer. Beyond that, it's hard to beyond that, it's hard to enact a fail-safe way to ensure this. It's a problem that all libraries face when dealing with patrons who have been suspended or banned for whatever period of time. I know when I worked at the Waukegan Library, that was a concern as well. So I don't necessarily have a solid suggestion, or a more solid suggestion than that at the moment. But
maybe it's something the committee can look into further details. I'll just react to, I like Matt's suggestion. I think it was a suggestion to remove 1 year and replace it with indefinitely.
Yeah, yes, provided that doesn't become construed as potentially less than 1 year, right? Yeah.
Could you do something where you where the person is banned for the year and it will be reviewed again, or in 1 year, or banned indefinitely with a review in 1 year?
Yeah, I was thinking.
I like that language.
I was thinking suspended for a period of no less than 1 year, at which time it will be reviewed.
Yes, that's kind of there. That gives us the opportunity to continue the ban after that 1 year period, but at the same time.
Can you say that wording again, Kathy?
Suspended for a period of no less than 1 year, at which time the terms of the suspension will be reviewed. Because I'm thinking as we revise policies, we may reflect that his behavior is then violates the new policy, which means we would review and continue the suspension, or have the right to do so.
I think the key here is if the individual is not a Lake Bluff resident, I think gives us a little bit more latitude to enforce a ban. Saying a lifetime ban may open up for appeals and things on that nature, but doing it this way, we're kind of in control of it in the 12-month period.
And Katie, can you confirm for us that this individual does not live in Lake Bluff? So
not according to the information that we have, but that it's possible that our information may be outdated.
Well, maybe we can work on that. Let's just, we may be able to track something down.
I was going to say, thank you everyone for this discussion. I really appreciate everyone's thoughtful feedback on this. Since we are getting close to 9 o'clock, I do want to make sure that we get to at least being able to approve the check register, and hopefully being able to do a quick Human Resources Committee report. Kathy, I know also under new business, you had mentioned a discussion of the director interview process, which would go to executive session. Is that still something that you wanted to do for this meeting?
Jenny, do we want?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I think that was going to be a separate meeting after. It was just.
Is that going to be included in your HR committee?
Yes, I think we're going to discuss specifics tonight so that we can share with the rest of the board. So it will be a separate meeting from the board.
Gotcha. Okay, so that will be included under the terms of the HR meeting that was set up for 8:30, which we have now blown past. Okay. All right. I think we can go through the last of the agenda very quickly. And hopefully November's meeting will not be quite as long as the last two. Okay, so jumping back to financials, let me bring up the check register, which has not yet been approved. A lot of the checks from this last month were pretty standard. A couple of things that I do want to highlight. Oh, and let me enlarge that for everyone. A couple of items that I wanted to highlight. Nope. Okay, the first one is for Mission Square, which is what we use for the deferred compensation 457K plan that eligible staff can participate in. Normally, we only have one payment made to Mission Square per month. Usually, however, with the transfer of Eric leaving and him passing along login information to us, we found we were having a lot of issues logging into the account in order to process these payments like would normally happen. So that took a little bit of time. We had to get in touch with a bunch of people, try and get passwords reset. So there was a little bit of a backlog in terms of getting some of these payments processed. That's why we have 5 here instead of, the usual, just, I think it's usually just 1 a month. I believe for the next meeting, it should go back to just being 1 payment, but I just wanted to give everyone a heads up about that. For Rails, I just wanted to highlight the $400 payment to Rails. That is our renewal for HR Source, which is the management and HR resource that we get a discount from through our registration with Rails. The fact that we are a small library, we get a discount to these HR Source services, which have been very helpful over the years. So it was definitely a service that we wanted to make sure that we continued with. So that's what that $400 payment is for. And then underneath, just a couple rows underneath that, there's the Wakanda Area Public Library, just a fee of $19. Small fee, but since it's paid to another library, just wanted to highlight that appears to be a replacement cost for an interlibrary loan item that I believe was checked out to one of our patrons. So that is what that payment is in regards to. Again, acknowledging that we haven't had as much time as usual to look over the check register. Are there any questions that anyone has?
Just that last check there for the 24,289. Those are advance payments, or those are payments to the for the Stro room.
Yes. Yes, that I believe was for the third payment application.
And Katie, just to verify my thinking there was an earlier payment, probably September, maybe August, of 33,000. That actually was a first and second payment. Is that correct?
I don't think it was a first and second payment, but I think there may have been something else combined in there. I'd have to take a look since I don't have the numbers in front of me.
But the 24,289 is the final payment.
I don't think we've received. I will have to double check.
Okay.
Yeah, there's been a lot of emails exchanged about the Stro room payments. So I will double check on that and get back.
Yeah, and actually, if you talk to Jason again, he did send out on 10/6 the renovation cost update. It would be handy if they had payments listed in that. I don't know if that's.
I can ask.
Do that, but that would help us.
What it looks like is on the revenue and expenditure report. It looks like this 70,119.99 has been used, and then we've got reimbursed back so far then for 50,000. So that would mean the 25,000 for those three last checks. We'd be waiting for a remuneration on those. So that 25,083.68 turns up then on page 4 of the revenue and expenditures. So it looks like we're into the Stro room for about 70,000 at the moment. Does that make sense? Does that sound about right?
I think that sounds about right.
We're into it for more than that.
Right. Plus the donations, I guess.
Well, if you're adding on the 15 of the of the friends. Okay, thank you. It looks at I'm gonna jump ahead, but just because Bill, you've been so patient with this, and when we sit down at finance, I can show it to you and I can clean this up a little bit. It looks as though there's going to be, when all is said and done, a shortfall of about $21,106. Of which that is furniture for 13,333, and a payment to SMC of 7,773.
Okay.
And that's after the foundation met and we agreed that we're going to make a donation of another $10,000 from foundation funds. So we're kind of handing it over to the library now to see where we stand and what the library will do. And then we can go back and forth between the foundation, but that's where we are right now.
So the foundation may donate another 10,000 based on what the library is going to do with the 21,000, or The
Well,
10th.
no, the remainder due was 31,106. So the
Okay.
foundation will advance to the library another 10,000, leaving 21,106.
Okay. So
And then
that's kind of what we got to look forward to see what we can do with
Right.
on our operating budget. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Katie, do you have the numbers? Was there a?
Yes, yes, I do have the numbers. So the check numbers, it's 15,360. And then 15,362 to 15,384.
Okay, so the 15,361 was the void.
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Okay. Barring any further questions in regards to the check register, I would be looking for a motion to approve.
A motion to approve checks 15,360 and 15,362 through 15,384.
Okay. Bill moves. Can I get anyone second?
I'll second. It's Bonnie.
Okay. All right, second from Bonnie. So roll call vote. Trustee Hayes,
Aye.
Trustee Jerch,
Aye.
Trustee Meierhoff,
Aye.
Trustee Graziano,
Hi.
Trustee Zaute,
Aye.
and Trustee Shaul.
Aye.
Okay, motion approves. Checks 15,360 and 15,362 to 15,384 have been approved. With that, Janie, do you have a 2-minute update for the committee report? Or not Janie, Jenny. Oh Lord,
Sorry.
I'm so sorry. It's late.
No problem. Stressful day. Well, thank you everyone, trustees, for everyone that was able to make it to our first round of interviews. We have some wonderful candidates that we're looking at. So in terms of follow-up from our first interviews, our next step is to, we've sent out a confirmation that we're going to be doing second interviews with 3 of our candidates. And so we are going to be checking references, and then we are going to be planning for a day of interviews on October 26th. So with more details to come, our HR committee is meeting tonight about next steps.
Okay.
Sorry, Katie, one last thing. So, and I'm sorry, for the next meeting, it's going to be staff interviews, as well as second trustee interviews. So anyone that is available that day, we're going to be hoping that everyone would get to meet them. So.
Okay, yeah, so HR committee was the only committee that met within the last month. But I do know budget planning season is upon us, so I will be getting an email out to the finance committee to start that process. So look for that hopefully by the end of the week, barring anything major happening in the next few days. And I did include a brief overview of the budget timeline in the packet for anyone who is curious about what that should look like. That's based on the process that Eric has followed in the past. So following his guidance on that. Okay, so with 5 minutes to go before 9 o'clock, thank you everyone for hanging in there on a long meeting. I really appreciate it. If there's nothing else pressing that we want to bring up in the next 5 minutes, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
Katie, can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Okay, one last thing. I just wanted to see, do we have plans to follow up with Allie tomorrow, either a trustee or a staff member, just to kind of wrap up with her what we talked about tonight? I know that there's a limit as far as how long people can talk on our meeting, but just so that she knows, how much, what we've discussed and our next steps. And so she can, if she has any additional things that she wanted to share
Yeah, Kathy, do you want me to follow up with you tomorrow about? Oh, you're muted, Kathy, sorry.
Yeah. I don't know. How do we all think this is best? I could call, Katie could call. Someone should probably establish a relationship with this woman. I know that she's not gonna be satisfied with what we have to tell her, but we can just fill her in. I could call her. I can't do it until probably after 2 p.m. tomorrow.
Well, I was going to say, I don't know if it's something that, well, I'm not going to be in until 1 o'clock tomorrow anyway. But I was going to say, I can touch base with you, beforehand if you'd like.
Before,
before one of us gives her a call. If you'd like.
okay, but I can't do anything. I mean, so you want to contact me at 1 o'clock or so, or?
I can contact you after that. I'm not going to be available till about 2ish or afterwards anyway.
Well, and maybe Katie, maybe since you've had email contact with her, maybe we could just send her an email to let her know that we'd love to.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Well, I'm sorry, but Janie, but sorry, I'm not, Bonnie, I wasn't finished. Just to let her know to expect a call from us at 2 o'clock, so she's not waiting all day thinking, but just to say, thank you so much for attending and bringing these concerns. We want to discuss them further with you, and we will be following up with you, or either a trustee or staff will be following up with you at 2 o'clock tomorrow, or so that she knows to expect a call, so that she's not waiting, and she gets something tonight so that she knows we want to follow up with her.
I think that's a great idea. The other thing that was occurring to me is that she sounds very interested in staying involved in whatever we want to do here. I don't know how you feel about asking her to be part of our ad hoc, because we talked about, getting some of the friends involved and some other community people. How does everybody feel about inviting her to be in on the discussions? I have very mixed feelings about it myself.
Yeah, I'm thinking let's wait till we have a first meeting, because I do think we should bring in some members of the community. I don't know, I think it's a little raw for her to be involved through the whole process. She might have an opportunity to address the committee and share her concerns and thoughts and so forth. But let's, before we have a plan, let's get a group together, and I'm talking about this week. Let's get this going. And then, so Katie, if you could reach out to her by email tonight. Thank you for joining us this evening. Either you or I will join her. We'll follow up with this tomorrow afternoon. Just give me a phone number for her. And we'll be following up with our plans. And then in addition to that, if you could, I said, why don't each of you, if you have an interest in this committee or even part of it, when we talked about a lot of work to do, email Katie and let her know when you might be available. We'll try to do a backwards doodle on this.
Did everybody just see Jillian's note that popped up there? Her point is well taken, that if it's going to be a committee, it's open to anybody who wants to attend. So if this this young mom wants to attend any committees, I guess that's,
of course, but that doesn't mean she has to be a committee member.
Exactly right.
No, I mean, and that, anyone can always come to any meeting that we have. I'm not excluding her in any way.
Yes.
I'm thinking we will find a role for her that's appropriate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
So anyway, my thought was, why don't you let Katie know your schedule, your thoughts. The ad hoc committee, we don't have to be bound to a roster of people. We can come and go with assignments and get, I'm thinking of all this policy work that a couple of people can work on that, and staff. And so we'll piece this together, and we'll try to do it quickly. And then we'll have Mark's expertise as well to draw on. So.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. with that, I would be looking for a motion to adjourn.
I will so move.
Okay,
Okay,
was that you, Matt?
Matt,
that was Matt second.
Okay,
thank you.
all right, motion by Janie, second by Matt. This meeting has adjourned at 9:01. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Have a
you.
good
Thank you,
evening.
Katie.
I will.
Thank-